Hey the berries, welcome to a video that's slightly different from what I usually do. In this video we're going to be talking about Riot's balancing team issues slash gameplay balancing issues slash struggling to innovate, and we're going to be talking about a couple of recent patches that have kind of annoyed me to the point where instead of what most people usually do and just rant at the balance team, I'm here to offer some suggestions. And if you are watching Riot, then you can hire me if you want. But to bring you up to speed, if you're not aware, this is probably the most controversial one that the balance team have done in the recent out of the recent patches that have been out. So at the bottom there, this is what originally was implemented for 12.16. So they changed zoomies, they nerfed it basically. They didn't seem to want to have Yumi at Worlds. Within 24 hours, they hotfixed it and buffed it. Buffed the Q and buffed the ulti. Like, I don't quite understand what goes in the balance team there. So you got, well, you don't really got, you nerf the heal ability on Yumi. Within 24 hours, you giga buff the Q damage and reduce the ult cooldown. I don't understand what happens there at that point. That one was pretty annoying, but then it started to see that there was, consistent issues happening with the balance team. With the most recent one was the Misfortune Change. So at the bottom, same thing happens. So they release a buff this time for Misfortune. So it's going to be the other way around. And then within 24 hours, they nerf. And then they do a hotfix stealth nerf on her Q. And then in the next patch, she's going to be nerfed again. What I find really, really strange about this Misfortune one is the main reason why she's strong is because under her double up, if you see just here, my finger's now disappearing, the base damage got increased, but also the cast time now matching basic attack time instead of being a flat 0.25 seconds feels broken to play as when you're playing as Misfortune. And now, honestly, I got a recent Misfortune video that I uploaded, and within a minute of playing Misfortune, I was like, yeah, this was kind of busted. I personally don't understand how it even got through, because all they would have to do, right, is tweak the numbers, do the adjustment, go into a practice tool, and go into a game straight away if we've practiced dummies or whatever, right, and go, yeah, this actually might be a bit too strong. So to me, that's like a red flag saying like they either had no one at the in-house that can actually play Misfortune or has played Misfortune and could feel the difference. I mean, if you don't know, I'm a support main, and I could tell straight away that the Q change felt like a ridiculously huge buff on that alone. So it's a lot of question mark pings there about what is actually going on in terms of, okay, they're offering these changes for these champions, but they don't actually seem to test or really think about the repercussions properly about what's happening, and it's just becoming quite sloppy for someone who's been playing the game for a long time, because I don't really recall a situation like this where it's been occasionally you get a champion go over buffed, or particularly when a new champion gets released, fine, but like consistently on multiple champions. You got the same with Hecarim as well. Hecarim's in the same state right now. He got buffed and changed last patch, now getting reverted. But like if they had just tested it like in-house with one game with someone who plays Hecarim or jungle, you could tell straight away that Hecarim was insanely strong. So I'm not exactly sure what is going on here and the consistency of it. Another thing that I kind of wanted to talk about, well, on this kind of final subject, is Riot in the last 4 or so years now, wanting to implement changes to the game and failing. Big one comes to my mind is the AD carry change. They did that mid-season, and they made AD carries completely useless for a patch or two. They tried to make it so that AD carries were better in the bot side, but they made AD carry role pretty much unplayable for AD carry mains. This season, mid-season patch again, they do the tankiness patch, but like, why are Riot doing these massive changes at the end of the season and the more minor stuff in the mid-season? It just doesn't make any sense once again to me. And also, this must be affecting pro play a lot as well, chucking in huge gameplay changes in the mid patch, giga changing the meta potentially, and this could easily affect the competitiveness value of League quite easily. So I don't understand why they're not doing it at the end of the season. I mean, our end of season change for season 12, we were meant to have 2 new dragons. Well, we only got 1, so that was fantastic. And to be fair, Hex Tech Dragon is quite nice. I do enjoy using the portals. I think the dragon overall was okay. But yeah, disappointing start of the season when, you know, the one of the dragons gets removed because it's just completely broken and stupid to play with. And honestly, they didn't really introduce that much during that. So why wasn't the tankiness patch brought in at the start of the season? Why is everything taking so much longer to do? Like, we've known for ages that assassins were bursting people down too much, and it's taking this long. Next patch, they in the most recent patch again, they nerfed Sonya's, which is welcome, but then again, assassins are now super strong again. So really, the tankiness patch that they did in the mid-season didn't really do a whole lot, in my opinion. Another thing as well is Riot making the game customize it for your own player experience, right? So we have rune pages. And anyone remember those super old school rune pages? So at the end of season 8, they got rid of these runes. If you still remember those, then you're pretty old. And now you've got, you know, the rune system that we now have. But when Riot marketed this to us, they were like, oh yeah, it's be like super customization. You know, you can take all these different types of runes depending on what game you're coming in. And honestly, like, we're now just taking the same runes pretty much every single game, and not by choice, so I'd love to change it up, but they keep nerfing and making the runes completely useless, so there is no unique rule, unique effect per gameplay. You've got, you know, if you're playing support, if you're you know, an AP mage, you're taking Arcane Comet. Sometimes it may be Dark Harvest if you're feeling a little bit fancy. That's basically it, really. And then you've got, you know, if you're playing Enchanter, you're basically taking Airy because they nerfed Guardian. So Airy is by far the best rune. And now, you know, they've nerfed Electrocute on Nami. So that diversity potential was, you know, is removed. And now you've got as well tanks always taking Glacial Augment because they nerfed Aftershock. And they nerfed Guardian. So it's just making it so that the old rune system is now the new rune system where everyone just takes the same runes because that's what is optimal in their champion, but there feels like there's no uniqueness to it at all. You might be able to change the magic resist rune to an armor resist rune on the new rune page, but that's literally it, and it's really unsatisfying to use. I went back into Riot's video, you know, going through the potential of the rune system, and I found it slightly amusing.
We want to take a look back at the year and talk about how League has changed, what we learned, and what we're thinking about as we approach 2018. But first, let's talk about some big changes that just hit live. Runes Reforged is still brand new, and we're just beginning to see where the meta-changing builds you're coming up with will take the game. We're already seeing runes being used to invent whole new builds and playstyles. It's truly awesome to see all the creativity and theory crafting you guys are applying to the new system. As just one example, we've seen Annie players taking Arcane Comet and Airy to build Poke, and others building full burst with Electrocute. And we think there might be a really scary Annie build using Predator that only a few of you have discovered. At this point,
like, I love as well, like, they did choose a versatile champion that can use multiple runes. So I give them credit for that. But the limited champion pool is for the diverse keystones is incredibly small. And then when you look at it as a support perspective, there is usually only one rune choice. So in my regard, as a support player, this system has essentially failed. But I want you to, I'm going to go back to this kind of subject a little bit later on with what I want from League over the next few years to kind of change. So first I want to talk about linear versus exponential growth. So pretty much every single ability in League, you have so every time you put a point in the ability, it's gaining the same amount of base damage. There is nothing special between putting an additional point in your ability. There's nothing unique about it, which I think is quite sad, because as you're meant to be like a little baby at the start, and then when you get progress through the game, you're meant to be like growing up and being stronger, right? But it doesn't really feel like that at all, because it's the same like minor buff every single time. Now the suggestion that I'm throwing out is just revamp it completely so that XP is worth more, and some of the levels, champion levels, are worth more. So at a level with 1 point in the ability, it's going to start lower than what it is right now. When you get to 3 points, it should meet the even of what it is currently at 3 points. And then when you put 5 points in the ability, it should be stonks, right? Particularly from a support perspective, because you only usually get to max 1 to 2 abilities anyway. And then you have like the rubbish third ability that you don't really care about at all. With this new system, they could make it so like you could actually be choosing abilities based on certain situations and maxing them first. And I have an additional suggestion on top of this to have ability customization, and that's with a Vigilant Wardstone. So for example, what we have is this is the current Nami W. Let me try and make that a little bit bigger so you guys can see it potentially a little bit better. There we go. So at the moment, the heal is 55 and it goes up 20 per point. The magic damage starts at 70 and then goes up 40 per point. Now if we go over to the new W, which I might need to move and maybe make a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. Oh no, everything is now breaking. There we go. The heal is now 45 from 55, so it's a little bit weaker. But then as you get to 3 points, it's the same. And then once you get to 5 points, it's much better. So it's gone 135 to 160. So that is a plus 25 heal with having 5 points in the ability. The damage also goes up eventually by plus 30. So this solves two things. It makes playing the champion, and as you're progressing through the game, it makes you feel stronger, right? And it solves the AD carry issue of AD carries constantly complaining how weak they are compared to enemy supports. Gives AD carries a little bit of a higher chance of doing trades, and it allows the support not to have to feel like that they have to roam 24/7. It allows them to stay in the lane and get the XP, and XP is now worth more because you want to get 5 points in your W or whatever spell that you want as quickly as possible. So it does two things: makes AD carries slightly stronger in the very, very start of the lane phase, and it prevents roaming from supports too much. Riot have said it in the past that they think support roaming is too much of an issue. They've tried to do things about this in the past. You can apply these changes quite easily, across the board to tank supports, and encourage them to not miss out on too much XP in the bot lane. I had another idea which I didn't have graphics for, but with the Vigilant Wardstone, I had two ideas of what you could do with this. So with the current system, it's still, even with this change, it's still going to make it so like you choose, say for a Nami, you're always going to be choosing the W. You could do it so that the Vigilant Wardstone allows you to put 2 additional points into your ability. And then we're going to keep going with that exponential curve. So from at the bottom down there, so you can see 160 heal, that would go up to 200, and then like 250, and then the damage obviously would go up as well. So you would actually be able to put 7 points in a single ability, which I think would personally be quite cool. Alternatively, if you wanted more customization in terms of like, you know, being innovative properly, I don't know if they'd be able to introduce this in the system. But if you pick up a Vigilant Wardstone, you could choose one of your abilities instead to augment, empower basically. Kind of think more along the lines of Victor. They could even throw like some arcane vibes on this, I don't know. So you augment one of your abilities, and then, for example, the W could bounce more, an extra 2 bounces in a team fight, which would be pretty cool. Because you know how Nami W can only affect 3 targets, so if it could affect 5 targets in a team fight, that could be pretty cool. You could have it so that if you choose to augment your E instead, if you use your E on an ally, it will affect another ally near them within a certain range. If you could augment your Q, you could make it so that maybe it fires out like 3 bubbles, or maybe the bubble itself is just, it lands quicker. One of those two things, or just the bubble is bigger. Just something like that. You have to choose, okay, I need more crowd control, so I'm going to get the bubble. Or, you know, we've got a lot more team fights going on. I think it feels quite balanced and even. You know, the W would get hit more targets and be quite nice that way. Or if you feel like your team needs a bit more chase potential, then, you know, popping in the E could be an option. So that gives you, in the game that you're playing in, as you're realizing the outcomes and what things are happening as the game is progressing, it allows you to augment one of your abilities on the go. And, you know, they could expand this in theory to pretty much every single champion. It would increase so much more customizability in the game, and it would, you know, it would make the rune system look like a joke if they were able to implement this. This would be a big job for sure, especially if you're going to be augmenting 3 abilities on every single champion in League. Some champions might have to be put on hold on release, but I think in terms of the long term and the enjoyability of the game, I think would go up incredibly. Like actually having to choose an ability to what you want to be, you know, your key ability would be, I don't know, that would be my dream anyway. So I thought on top of this, you know, those are my kind of suggestions for how League can be more customizable. In terms of going one step further than that, I was thinking of items. So I was thinking of, I came across 3 items. Okay, 3 items I made up on the spot. Let me know which one you think sounds the coolest. First, we have the portal. Okay. So this is a very, very bad diagram that I decided to make. It's basically an item. I'll put some stats up in a second. It's an item, a support item, where a support can put down a killable portal, and you can then set another point to have another portal. So think kind of in a way like Rek'Sai Burrow, but only champions can go inside. And the distance is longer, and the portal is killable via auto attacks and abilities. So if I go to the actual my item description, so I made it super cheap, 2,000. It would be one of the cheapest items in the game. Second cheapest if you don't include Vigilant. You could always up this to 2,100 or 2,300 if they really wanted to. Base stats are incredibly similar to a Redemption. The heal and shield power is lower though because of the cheaper cost. And you would be able to spawn 2 portals, 90-second cooldown. You can always adjust this if you felt that was too much. And then champions may click either entrance to they channel it, quite similar to the Hex Tech portals. And when you're inside, you're stealthed and untargetable until they reach a destination. The Void passage basically has 300 health, and if you destroy, you can destroy it with abilities. The level will be increased by the person that put it down, and a summoner champion level. And it's just a nice little gimmicky item to allow your jungler to make plays, to potentially let you have like some alcove gaming control. You can put like the portal in the alcove and use it as like potentially a nifty way to help your AD carry escape in some situations. One thing I would have it so like if you were in a certain range from the portal, and someone was taking the portal, if you were close enough, even if you were in Fog of War, you still would be able to hear it. So it wouldn't be like giga OP in terms of ganks, but it'd be a lot of utility around moving around the map, particularly if it's not even like the Hex Drake. You know, you could use this as like an additional mobility tool, getting around different. I'm sure people would be super creative with this item, and we see where it goes. Another item that I thought, which I think might trigger some assassins, especially after the after Zonya's got nerfed, is the Berry Burst blocker. I felt like I had to have something relevant with my name in the game, of course. So it's got very similar stats to Zeke's. And it's 2,500, so a little bit more expensive than the Void Portal. It's a more combat T-type item. So you designate an ally like you would with Zeke's, and if they were to take, basically the gist of it is, if you're nearish that ally, and if they were to take 40% or more of their maximum health in 0.75 seconds, they become immune to all damage for 0.75 seconds. So basically it enables, it's an anti-assassin item. It allows someone to actually get to react to an assassin, whether it's just a flash or using a dash or whatever, to get away from assassin. So there is a chance, right, for some counterplay. They can be crowd controlled still during this. It's just that they're immune to damage for 0.75 seconds, so that allows them to actually get out of a situation of assassin jumping out for stealth or whatever. It just gives them that slim chance of survival afterwards, and I thought that was much better than something like the Knight's Vow that we got right now. I thought that was kind of like a bit boring, honestly. I think this is a little bit more exciting. Let me know how you think about this. Do you think this is going to be OP? Do you think this will annoy assassins too much? They seem to get their way quite a lot. But yeah, I thought that was seemed quite balanced as I was making it. I think 40% health is quite a lot to be able to activate that in the first place, and such a short amount of time as well. So you would have to tweak the numbers slightly a little bit. The balance team would have some fun with that one. But yeah, I think that would be quite fun. And also, if once that activates, the person with the item, so the support, would gain 10% movement speed when moving towards all allies for 5 seconds, which basically allows the support to basically try and crowd control, help peel off whatever danger is happening. So I thought it was a cool item, and tanks or enchanters could take this item, to be honest. And then we have my final item that I wanted to kind of share with you. Not 100% sure about it. It kind of maybe messes a little bit too much with the Victor W in terms of gameplay. I can't really consistency or whatever you want to call it. But we've got the Hex Tech Dome, fitting, the Hex Tech-ish kind of theme that's been happening. It has similar stats again to the Zeke's, slightly cheaper than the Berry Burst blocker. But the Hex Tech Dome, you deploy a Hex Tech Dome at the target location for 3 seconds. Allies inside the Hex Tech Dome take 15% reduced damage. So once again, it's a little bit, this one has a little bit more of a skill flair to it, as opposed to something as passive as the Berry Burst blocker or the Knight's Vow, or even the Zeke's. So there is something you actually have to do. There's a button you can have to press, so that has some skill flair. Enemy champions inside the dome, when the Hex Dome ends, takes 5% max health damage, which is true damage, and I've routed it for 1.25 seconds. Obviously you could tweak the route. I probably was considering maybe putting it down to like 1 second or 0.75. But that is basically the gist of that ability. So it's kind of got like a redemption flair to it. It's like, so you know how redemption heals allies and damages allies, heals allies and damages enemies. This one, mitigates damage for your allies. Still does the kind of like the true damage kind of stuff that a redemption would do, but with the added little bit of utility on top of that. I don't think that it would be, the circle wouldn't be as big as a redemption, because I think that would be kind of broken. We're probably talking about maybe slightly bigger than a Victor W, but I think that would be kind of cool. Once again, you could take this as an enchanter, as a tank, and I don't think we have that many kind of items like that these days, where enchanters and tanks like don't share the same items at all anymore, whereas it used to be a little bit of crossover Whereas this would kind of make that so, you know, you'd have the option of dipping into these kind of enchanter slash tanky type items where they're not really designated. You know, it's not definitely a tanky item, it's not definitely an enchanter item, it's like that midway kind of thing where, you know, it's viable for both types of support to pick up, which adds to the customizing of the game as well. So yeah, I don't know, that was my thoughts on the Riot balancing and how I would go about, you know, changing the game, or the kind of items that I would like to personally see into the game. Or as you know, technically we talked about 4 items in a way, with like a Vigilant Wardstone being the thing that augments supports things in order to, you know, adjust that. But then you'd have to do that for every single champion, and that could be quite a big job, but so what? If it makes the game better, then why not? Anyway, let me know how you feel. Which item out of the portal, the Bury Burst, the Hex Dome, which one of those is absolutely giga broken? And yeah, I don't know. Let me know how you feel about League at the moment.